You're listening to Lab Out Loud, Science for the Classroom and Beyond. And I'm your co-host, Dale Basler.
And I'm Brian Bartel.
And with us today is Dr. Rhett Allain, back on the show. He is an associate professor of physics at Southeastern Louisiana University. And big announcement, this is your fifth time on the show. You're in the Five Timers Club. Welcome, Rhett.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be in the Five Timers Club, and I accept my awards.
You're going to get a robe just like the Saturday Night Live?
Well, we had you on the show back in 2010. So I'm hoping we have listeners that weren't even born then.
In terms of human years, how many human years would that be? Or is there, what's the internet years to human years conversion?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Is that a thing?
I don't know. We can make it.
Yeah. We definitely can make a, yeah, exactly.
Some sort of calculator for it. Well, we are, and speaking of the internet, contacting you to talk about, now we love your work. If listeners don't know, you should check it out. Your just different places that you write for, including Wired Magazine, about all the little things you investigate with physics problems that you essentially discover and get sent to you and things like that. But like many, today we're talking about a thing called ChatGPT, which you've been kind of doing some interesting work on. And a lot of press has been circulating around about ChatGPT. This is the AI out there that you can type in questions. You can ask it to write you a paragraph, ask you to write an essay, and it just kind of spits it out there. And so there's been a lot of hand wringing about that and how it works in education. And just today, I saw an article about New York City schools banning it for students and staff. And we also just saw, Rhett, you wrote an article about is ChatGPT going to, I believe, destroy education. So thoughts on excellent title too. Thoughts on ChatGPT. What have you discovered with your experiments?
I mean, I don't think it's going to destroy education. That's a blog title, and they're supposed to be attractive, right? That's what I learned.
Provocative.
So,
yeah.
And the blocking of ChatGPT from certain schools, I think that's more, schools don't like to change. They block YouTube, right? They block other things. They didn't allow
Wikipedia.
They didn't allow calculators. What about when calculators came along? Think about the resistance to using calculators in math class, which I still think isn't this. I think they went overboard on that, to tell you the truth. But there was the same kind of thing. So when you introduce new technologies, there's always some, pushback.
It reminds me a lot of blocking Wikipedia in the early days of its use and how kids would use that to cheat. And I think we've come full circle on that, I hope, in many situations.
And, the Wikipedia thing is interesting because if you remember back when they were, then, everyone's going to cheat using Wikipedia. And then the people were saying, well, Wikipedia's wrong, right? It could be wrong. And it could be wrong. But Wikipedia is not wrong. I mean, no more than any other encyclopedia. And I think for the most part, it's much more accurate than those things because it can be changed right away.
There's even scientific research done that compared like mistakes on one topic. And it turned out that, they were exclusively pretty much the same.
Now, to be fair, ChatGPT is wrong at times. They say it straight up, and that's one of the things that New York City listed as one of the problems, that it's inaccurate, it's biased, it can give like harmful information and those kinds of things. I do think that all those claims are cover for them just wanting to block it because teachers might be panicking that kids are going to have this thing write their, responses for them. But I thought was interesting was that it also was blocked for staff. And I personally think that's a terrible idea. Like, staff should be experimenting with this and learning about it, which is what, kind of putting it through some of the obstacle course of whatever subject matter they teach. And you've done some of that, Rhett, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, I just want attention. So if there's something new, I'm going to try to get attention from that. But let's talk about ChatGPT. It's really popular for people to talk about. And some people have done some really cool things with it. So you want to explore the boundaries of what this new tool can do. So far, the one thing I think it does 90% well, but that 90% can be very useful, is write Python code. It's really good at writing Python code, even though it still has errors, but it's a good start. You have to know Python code to know what the mistake was, but then you can take that code that it writes and fix it. And so it can be used as a time saver. And all the problems with ChatGPT, I could see in the future, just getting better and not having those same problems. It can get better.
Well, what about some of the physics problems? You fed some of your physics problems, some out of the book, into it. How did that pan out?
It didn't do too well. I mean, it's funny that it was a lot like interacting with a student.
Yeah.
And that's the part that I think is extremely useful, is that you could give this to students as though it was talking to another student to correct it, right? Because what's the best thing about learning physics for students is to correct or find mistakes in other students' work. And here's another student that doesn't get upset when it's wrong, and it always apologizes. It's very deferential to mistakes, right? It's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I made a mistake. Let me fix that. It's never saying, no, I'm not wrong, you're wrong. Even though I've even tried to get it to, I've told it things that are wrong, saying, you're wrong, it's actually 2 + 2 is 5. And it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'll fix it.
Oh, really? Oh,
I didn't do that one exactly, but I did do things that I know were wrong. And I said, well, you're wrong, it's this. And
are you saying your students are overly polite just as much as the machine?
No, my students would have their feelings hurt when they don't want to be wrong, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And which is bad. But
I had a son who, my son is his first year in college, and he's taking intro physics, and his dad's a physics teacher. So about every Thursday evening or Friday evening, because they're due at midnight, he'll text me like, hey, can you look over this? And so I was just like, at first I'm like super eager, like, oh, he's reaching out, my little boy. And then afterwards I was like, wait a minute. Well, yes, what did you get? I had to and he, to his credit, he fired back the answer pretty quick. So he was doing it. So he was just kind of asking for advice. So I felt good about that. But he had sent me some problems, and then I'd work them out, and just we'd verify. And then when this came out, I was like, I'm going to feed this one in there, these problems in there. And I felt the exact same way. I felt like this is the kind of answer that I got from a student who cared about their grades but didn't know what was going on. Because a lot of times the answers were really pumped up. They were full of, it always is kind of the classic restate the question. It was, it was almost like trying to write more, And
when in doubt, write more out.
Yes. The problem it gave, the scenario was a metal sphere is hanging from a string. And as it hangs from the string, it's submerged into water, so that half of the sphere is covered with water. So half of it, only half of the sphere is in water. So this is and it says find the tension in the string. So it's kind of a classic, draw a free body diagram. Find the tension in the string, and you really have to find the buoyancy force for this ball in water, if it's in water, and know those kinds of pieces of information. And it did a pretty decent job about all of it. It lists out all the equations. I'm like, oh, you're just really kissing up to me, this chatbot, And then the only thing it didn't do is it didn't cut the volume in half. So it cut the volume in half initially, but then afterwards, when it needed to use that number, it used the full volume of the sphere as if it was completely submerged. And I was like, that's something a kid would have done too.
Like a sophomore,
just carried through
error.
the wrong. Yeah, they would have carried through the wrong wrong number here. And so that's exactly what I thought, is like, I could print that out and give that to my students and say, okay, is this correct? If so, why? If not, where did the robot go wrong?
So are you saying that ChatGPT is actually just a bunch of kids behind the screen?
Oh my gosh, that's it.
They're
this
giggling.
is how those teens are paying for all their expensive lifestyle. They're just actually responding.
when it did this full sphere instead of half the sphere, did you tell it was wrong?
I didn't,
or were you
because
being too embarrassed?
I didn't even think of that as an option until I saw your post and you wrote you're wrong, and then it replied to you with like, sorry.
It's always sorry. Always
my
sorry.
Equation is wrong or something like that. And then it tried to fix it, but still broke it, right?
But see, and that's the thing that always confused me. when I say, oh, that Python code's wrong, it says, oh, you're right. I'm sorry. That's my mistake. Here's the fixed code. I'm like, if you know it's wrong, then why'd you give it to me?
Was the fixed code fixed?
No, not really. A lot of times the code, if I say it's wrong, like I did one today where it calculated centripetal force, but it didn't have a minus sign on the acceleration, so it was actually pushing it away from the circle. And I said, your acceleration's wrong. And so it said, oh, I'm sorry, I'll fix that. Of course, very apologetic, very nice robots. But it didn't fix it. And then finally I said the acceleration should be negative. And then it said, oh, you're right. And then I think it mostly fixed it, but
that's also a typical student mistake though.
Yeah.
They forget the direction, they don't understand the direction.
Well,
which
if you think about
positive and negative in which direction things are going on. It's nuance. It doesn't do nuance well.
This is like the difference of implementing an algorithm incorrectly versus understanding the process entirely.
Yeah.
What do you think about the freaking out though, Rhett? I mean, how freaked out are schools going to get? Is this going to be banned everywhere by the end of the year?
Yeah, but it shouldn't be. I mean, because it's just a tool, right? And it's not a very good tool right now. That's the problem. It will get better, but when it gets better, and if you have to pay to use this, I'm paying to use this, right? If it can be my literal, not an AI, artificial intelligence, but assistant intelligent, where I can say, and this is one thing I tried today, create me some conceptual questions to use in class on centripetal acceleration. And the questions were actually bad. But you can have bad questions to use in class, and I think that's fine. If you're doing clicker questions in class, having ones that have, which one's the correct answer, and there's actually more than one because you could debate about it, that's what I want.
Yeah, right.
And so it came up with questions that were bad, but you could use them. And I think, imagine if it got better, and it gave you great questions. Just, this is the topic I'm doing in class. Can you give me a worksheet or an activity or, do that stuff for me like an assistant would do, and print out some copies. That'd be super cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and I think that's where we're hoping to see, like, okay, what are the novel ways that we can use this tool without it being just a toy at the moment, and or for cheating, for instance. I think that's what I imagine. This is the worst for like English teachers or something like. Write me an essay is that prompt that comes up. And I feel like there's got to be a bunch of English teachers just like drowning their sorrows in a bar at, like, oh, our jobs are done kind of a thing. But
at the same time, it's like when the calculators came out, I used ChatGPT to reply to your email about this podcast, right? And I don't want to have to write. It wasn't a long email, but some people have written use ChatGPT to write letters to their landlord to negotiate, fees or something like that. It does a great job at that. I don't want to write that.
Yeah, it's a bit of it's kind of like an inspiration machine too. I had the perfect example yesterday. I had a scenario. It was the end of the day. I was trying to clear my inbox.
Dale is trying to use GPT anytime he can reply to an email. That's what he's been doing the last few weeks.
I really see a future where it is built into email. And you're just going to be like, hey, let the chatbot run my inbox for a while, and then I'll just approve, and supervise the responses, and then send them out. I mean, I can totally
if you were
see
king
that
of
being
physics,
a thing.
if you were the king of physics, you would have an assistant that replied to your emails for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why not have AI as your assistant? What's the difference?
Yeah. Yesterday I had someone ask me something that they wanted my help for something. Essentially, they were asking me to volunteer for something that is definitely outside of my job duty. And, I have free time, but not a lot of free time. So I really needed to say no, and this isn't my job, and I'm sorry, that kind of thing. But I wanted to say it politely. But it was the end of the day, and I didn't have a ton of energy. So I told ChatGPT, like, can you politely write a response to say no and that it's not my job, right? And that I don't have time. And it cranked out a couple different ones. And then I just kind of massaged those together into something that was more realistic for me. But it got it going. Something that would have taken like some, kind of like emotional energy to do at the end of the day. Like, this machine's just like, yeah, I can bang this out for you. And I was like,
on top of that,
this is perfect.
If the email offends someone, you can say, well, I'm sorry, that it wasn't even me. ChatGPT did. It's not my fault, right?
But
I'm imagining there's already been breakups that have been facilitated by ChatGPT.
Wow.
Oh, we were driving my son home from college, and I was telling this was for the holiday, and I was talking to my wife about this and introducing it. She's a nursing professor, and she said, and it was graduation. And she's like, I wonder how many graduation speeches are being written with this thing. And I was like, oh, that's a great example. So I plug in, like, write a graduation speech for an audience of nursing students, and it spits out this speech, and I read it to my wife, and she's like, I've given that speech. It wasn't personalized. She said, like, essentially that's the framework of like when she has to speak at graduation, she pulls up the previous ones she has, and there's sort of a general framework that she kind of rotates through and then puts in like the personalization of that cohort and stuff like that, or things that, made sense for that, do that. But it's those kind of initial, inspiration kicks that this thing I think is going to be excellent at.
Yeah, I think it's already good at those kind of things. It's just not good at physics problems.
No, it's nailed those kinds of things, I think. It's also not good. It can't like look stuff up for you.
Although, it can. It can, because
like
I was using it
won't do.
to check, I wanted to do a practice problem, and what's the best place to find practice problems? It's this website that rhymes with the name Fleg. And
you said that, and I don't know what that is. In your article, I don't know what this website is.
All right, do you want me to answer that question? Or?
Do we have to delete it in the podcast?
I don't know. I just try to avoid them at all costs because they kind of annoy me. But
okay, well, we won't mention it, but tell me what it is.
Okay, you haven't used Chegg?
No. Oh yes, I just never. Okay,
so you blanked it out of your mind too.
Yeah, I blanked it out of my mind. Okay,
yeah,
so the cheating.
I had a lot of problems with Chegg over the pandemic when we were doing online stuff, and it was and I think a lot of students just focus on, and this is a part of the problem with education, right? That our students say, I need the answer. And we are saying, no one cares about the answer. I care about you doing stuff. And
Correct.
If you just want the answer, then Chegg is a great place to get that. And ChatGPT would be too.
The only thing is we do kind of care about the answer in many of the machinery that we use to measure, rank, and, accept students.
But we shouldn't.
We shouldn't, but that's part of the problem. And is that where the panic is? Is like this machine is basically turning a mirror to your, your processes that are
it's one of the
anyways.
tools. One of those tools that have been doing that for a long time. YouTube does that too. You can find a lot of solutions on YouTube because I put them there. But
no. Tutorials aren't cheating, Rhett. That's a different thing.
Okay. But the thing that I was surprised at, I wanted to give a problem from Chegg and compare it. I didn't look at the solution on Chegg because I don't pay for that. But I wanted to, it's obviously a problem that students care about. And so it had a picture. I can't remember what the problem was. It had like a strings, a box hanging by multiple strings with angles, and then I could just copy the text of the code, but I didn't have the picture. And so I said, "Can you solve this problem?" And I gave it the URL.
Mm-hmm.
And it did. So somehow it saw the picture. I don't know.
I think if it's been there since 2021, I believe.
I think this was.
It may
have
been there before 2021.
Too, so. Yeah. Well,
I asked it to write a review of the podcast Lab Out Loud, and it responded with, "I can't get information from the internet." Da 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 da. So.
Huh.
Yeah, that's what I didn't understand, because I thought how would this thing write reviews, or because we've been around before that time. So
yeah,
I didn't get a chance to experiment with some of those, but a lot of the hokey assignments that you used to have, like you'd have the kids like write a rap,
ChatGPT
it just does that. Poems, write a poem all day long.
I had it. I said, who would win? And this is, I was talking to it. We're having friends. I'm friends with the chat, right? So we're going to talk. So I said, who would win in a battle between Darth Vader and Spider-Man? Because that'd be fun. Let's go, right? That's a classic. Let's have a discussion. And it said, I can't talk about violence. I was like, okay, well, I respect that. That's a pretty good idea. And then I said,
Yeah.
write a haiku about ICBMs, and it said, oh, sure, I can do that. And it did.
That's
And
interesting.
it was a haiku about intercontinental.
Yeah,
ballistic
it's supposed to be designed not to do like violence and inappropriate content, and it's not going to provide you with a description of how to harm yourself.
No, that's good. It's like the
Stuff,
early
yeah.
version of Asimov's 3 Laws of the Robots, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This really brings me back though to when we first started teaching, and there was this sense of you have to ask questions that Google can't answer. And now we're getting into another kind of like iteration of this, where now we have to think about ways that are much more personalized or in some ways made up. And it kind of makes me remember back to, like, unit conversions. And sometimes I'd make these hokey unit conversions and make things up. And it was, again, about the process of converting things that don't exist, for instance. And that's, I think sometimes those are going to showcase the process more than the actual answer. And feed it, if you try to feed ChatGPT something that doesn't exist, it's going to struggle. So
Yeah.
Are we going to find more things like that are either utterly personalized that it can't do, or nonsensical, I guess, that showcase processes?
Well, there's really 2 things that we do, right? And I think a lot of people confuse those 2 things. The 2 things that we do are coach students in physics, help them understand physics. And then the other thing we do is evaluate students' understanding of physics. And I think a lot of people try to do those 2 things at the same time, right? I'm gonna grade your homework to make you learn, and then the students say, well, I'm gonna use ChatGPT to do that. And so that's really where the problem is. And, if imagine a nice situation where it was I'm trying to think of a good. It's just a gym. It's some type of gym where people go to work out. They're not competing, right? You don't go to the gym to compete. You just go to the gym to work out, and you get better. And you have a person there that helps you get better. And you're not trying to cheat and score a goal in some new way, because it doesn't matter. And
Well, it'd be like taking a Fitbit and putting it in a paint shaker.
Yeah,
Like, why did you buy that?
and people do that. But
Well, I mean, if you get rewards from your health assessment, then sure, of course.
That's how they ruin. That's not altruism.
this is why we can't have nice things.
Yes, exactly.
You can with the points that you get. No, anyway.
Yeah. We fed it some, they're not teacher perceiver questions, but they're basically the canned questions that get asked for
Applications
for teachers. Oh, it's great at those.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that speaks to that application process. Why are you even bothering having teachers answer those questions in the first place?
I mean, it's the same as what we do. Why do we teach, this particular concept in physics? Because it was in there 50 years ago, and we just do it, right? Why do we do it this way? That's just the way we do it. We ask these questions for teacher candidates and faculty interviews because that's what other people did. I don't really put a lot of weight into those. I wait until we discuss. I want to meet that person face to face. Then I can really.
Yeah.
And at the college level, it's a 6-year interview process, tenure, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You want them to answer a question on the fly, those kinds of things. I remember for my interview for teaching, they gave me a scenario. They actually gave me a misconception and said, how would you, teach this? What would you do? That kind of stuff. That's a little different than, asking a colleague approaches you about discipline in the classroom, and it answered beautifully for those questions, I thought.
I mean, it goes back to the point when you're hiring to try to encapsulate the value of that person in an hour or even a day is really ridiculous. It's really difficult to do.
Yeah.
So you're always just taking a chance.
Well, you're also going to have to, because it provides pretty generic answers. So I feel like everything now you're going to have to ask is more specific, like not why do you want to be a teacher, but why do you want to be a teacher in this school district? What about this district made you choose this or something like that? Which is kind of loaded because some people are going to be like, I need a job.
That's my answer. I mean, that was the job that was open. I came here because that's where I can get paid.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that
Do you
answer. That's a fine answer.
Yeah, that's true. It's an honest answer. Yeah.
Rhett, do you think that there could be a benefit for education because of tools like ChatGPT, whereby we really have to reconsider the role of homework, and maybe we need more face time with students, and we need smaller class sizes so that we can really deliver on education rather than just being, a transactional kind of like a process.
Well, yeah, and I think the same thing's true with these online solution places. The better those are, the more you realize how silly it is to do some of these things, right? To give this, I assign homework, but I just say do it, and I'll give you points for it if that's what you want. It doesn't really matter, but I really care about just seeing that you're doing stuff, and it gives you an opportunity to practice, and you can come ask me questions. If you're just plugging it into ChatGPT, then you're bypassing the system, and students are always going to find a way to bypass the system. But there's also faculty that kind of do that too, giving multiple choice tests and, for everything. And hopefully at some point they can realize that's not really what do we really want to do? Is it really, we're just here to do a job to get paid, or are we really trying to help students learn? And if this pushes people more towards really want to help students learn, then I think that's better.
Do you think your students can learn by, let's say that you give them a set of problems and they still feed it into ChatGPT? Like, is there what would that look like to actually learn but still use it?
I think they could. I think most students would let's assume that ChatGPT is correct. Right. So let's say it gets better and it puts it in there. It would be like now when they go to a tutor. Can students learn by going to a tutor? Yes, especially if they have a good tutor. Can they not learn by going to a tutor? Yes, they can have the tutor do their homework, and they think I got the homework. I got it, right? Yeah. And I think the same situation is here, and it's why we need to make sure we include elements of the nature of learning. We need to talk to them about learning in all our classes. Right? We assume that they understand what learning is, and I don't think that they always need to be reminded about, you can't just get things right away.
Like, why are we doing it this way? That's tricky because they've been in such a trainer for like the bad ways. We've conditioned them to not we, to not be open to that. We. Some have, our systems have done that. Yeah, because I could see if I'm kind of struggling if I told my son about it. Now he doesn't have physics next semester; he has biology, but still, could this help him? If he was struggling with a problem or was uncertain, if he did it, but then if ChatGPT delivers an incorrect answer, will that just confuse him more? I think that it's like when I looked at the problems answers that came back, you kind of know where they're going wrong. So then
sometimes you're like, what are you doing? I had one ChatGPT solution where it was doing well, and it put in the numbers and it included units in the parentheses and everything, which I was like, wow, that's amazing. Yeah. But then it literally multiplied numbers wrong, which I think that's the part the computer would do great at. And I was like, if I put this in my calculator, I get a different number than you. It made me question myself. I'm like, I have to be doing something wrong. It's calculating. Yeah. That's what computers do. That's literally what computer means.
Yeah. I used to have my students use the closest thing to this when was Wolfram Alpha.
Oh,
I would always have them just, shove this into Wolfram Alpha, particularly for those problems that are jumping between units. So you got a mixture of units in the problem. And I always felt like a lot of times that's just there to mess with you.
Yeah, I agree. Those problems are they're just mean. That's it.
It's like everything was in centimeters except for this one. Why'd you do that?
Physics obstacle courses. See if you can get through.
And so then that starts to mess with a kid, and they get an answer off. That's off by, a factor of 100 or something like that. And I'm like, that's where you just put it into Wolfram Alpha to get that part, because it's also I like Wolfram Alpha because it gives you perspective. Then it gives you if you put a number, if you put 26 liters in there, it's going to give it to you, and it's going to kind of give you an idea of what that is in actual things, some fraction of a swimming pool or something like that. That's
how many swimming pools?
27 liters. 27 liters. But I'm like, if you put a mass in there, and it might say like, this is half of an elephant. I don't know. That kind of gives people an idea, stuff like that.
Yeah, I find Wolfram Alpha does a pretty good. I mean, I haven't used it in a while, but it was doing a pretty good job before with their solutions.
Well, yeah, it doesn't screw up. it'll give you the wrong. It'll basically give you a different calculation, not the one you were intending.
Because it didn't understand your question.
Yeah, I didn't understand your question. So that was the closest I had. Like students would like, try to do the quadratic formula. And I'm like, we're not here to crunch through the quadratic formula. Yeah. We're here to use the quadratic formula. To me, I always felt like wasting your time running through the quadratic formula is like assembling a power drill before you're going to put something together with the power drill. Like why are we doing this? Like that's, and I would argue, let the machine do that. You're trying to get to the understanding and the endpoint of the understanding. So, and I talked to a friend who's a mechanical engineer, and he talks about some of the things that they learned in college. And he goes like, it was important to understand it and have it at arm's reach. And if I needed to snuggle up with it again, I could do it. It might take me a little bit to kind of dust the cobwebs off of it. But he's talking about like material interactions and stuff. And he's like, a lot of that's just looked up in a table and spit out, and then we use that number and roll with it. We don't have to know the gory details anymore. But,
back to your question about what if ChatGPT, if it worked perfectly, would be good for students. And it really depends on the student, because if the student, what's their tolerance for struggle? How long can they keep working on a problem before they say, I need to go get help from ChatGPT? Is it 5 seconds? Is it 5 minutes? Is it, 15 minutes? That's a big difference. If they can wait.
The peak of disengagement or something like that.
If they know that safety net is down there at ChatGPT, that may decrease the amount of time, their struggle time. And we know the struggle is the learning. And, if they give up too quickly and just go to ChatGPT, they may think they understand the answer because ChatGPT just said it to them. When you work a problem on the board and you ask students about it makes sense. It makes sense. You give them that same problem for homework and they can't do it because it never really made sense.
Well, I've done that. I've done it wrong and completely in front of them on purpose. Sometimes I've done it wrong by accident. But sometimes I used to do them wrong on purpose. And they all agree. Like I'm just like they'll take it. It'll take a little while at first, but there's so many people that are just like, too trusting. Yeah. Like he's giving us the answer, right?
Because they think it is the answer. They think we're doing all this to get that numerical value at the end. That's why they want you to put the numbers in. Can you put numbers in?
Yeah.
That's the
all that chalk dust.
That's the answer. That's the goal. That's the trophy. That number. That's what I want to get to. Yeah. All this other stuff is just no point. My favorite analogy is let's join the track team and I'm going to run 5 miles. Well, I'm just going to get in my golf cart and go 5 miles. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I used to tell the students the chalk dust is the physics.
Yeah.
Like back when we had chalkboards. And like that's all the process there. But it's really hard to kind of sell that for kids. There's a lot of competition for grades in high school and
beyond.
And beyond. And so I've never been able to fully get to that dream world where you get kids to really want to learn. They're teens. They don't, they're not in there. They don't care about that, all of them. And so it's great when you see it in kids that are there, understanding that, I'm here to learn this, not get through this. But that's the minority.
And the problem is that, and it's even true in college, you have to go through pain with your students in order to get to the good stuff. So you have to make them, you have to set up situations where they have to struggle. And then they're like, I didn't have to do this in my other classes. This is bad. I don't like you. This is a stupid class. And because they're not used, they think that this is the wrong way to do it. Other classes don't do it that way. But once they get through that pain, there are some that survive and it's the greatest thing ever, right? You have students that understand, this is, the struggle is part of the process and I enjoy that. And that's why I do it. A lot of students don't make it through there. They just keep on saying, well, I'm going to do it my way, get the numbers, pass the test, and then be done with this and move on forever. But not every student does that. And if every student did that, I don't think I could keep doing what I do.
And the physics professor that's working with them, of course, is being a little bit not worrying about the survey data that's coming in and the responses for the end of the year surveys, right?
I don't worry about that.
No, but maybe they'll just use ChatGPT to write their survey,
or they won't do the
responses,
surveys.
you know. Oh, there
we
go.
moved to online surveys, and I get warnings all the time. Just to let you know, only 20% of your class has done the surveys. I'm like, okay, what do you mean to do? I mean, make them do it? I mean, I can't make them do it. So
It's probably more authentic for the actual responses that you get. The ones that don't care don't do it.
well, or what's actually less authentic, because you only get the people that either absolutely love you or absolutely hate you, and so you don't have the middle
true.
people in there. But and then some faculty say, well, we got to make them do those evaluations, and I'm like, well, if you make them do it, it's gonna be different. So
Yeah.
Right.
You know who's kind of gone through this is like your Amazons and other shopping places where they have struggled with bots writing reviews. Same kind of thing. Like, do you authentically know how you feel about a product or used it?
but I don't do that. I always order stuff from Amazon. It says, how do you rate this product? I'm like, I don't care. Why do I want to rate it? I don't want to rate it.
Do you read the reviews though? I mean, that's what
I mean, sometimes I don't really order. Usually I know what I want already before I order stuff. So,
like, I'm just thinking if you run a store and you have testimonials and reviews and you just have a bot doing ChatGPT's writing everything for you, like, is nothing real anymore?
then you can have ChatGPT pick the product for you too. If it's writing the reviews, it should say, ChatGPT, find me a screwdriver. Which one's the best?
There you go. That's a fair point. Yeah. Well, it'd be like student SOS surveys or student surveys for I don't know what you call them, but the student evals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how do we put a button on this for now? Like, how do we summarize this?
Well, we've talked a lot about education and potential of students abusing the system or maybe using it for good. Do we see ChatGPT as I guess a vessel for empowering students to learn?
Absolutely.
I would go back to the Lab Out Loud podcast in 1975 and see what you guys said when they started putting calculators in class and just compare.
That's right.
See, I don't remember issues about calculators in classes.
Really?
No, not really.
I
I mean,
might be
actually,
older.
I remember being in school. Aren't you like our
I don't
age?
know.
But I remember being in school and like, put your calculators away, people. That
Yeah,
kind of
but
stuff.
I mean, I remember being in a classroom and there was the calculator. And so you got special time and you would go work on the calculator. There was one calculator because they're really not cheap. And so then you'd push the buttons and then you'd spell out things that, so, and then like I said, the problem right now, we have a calculator requirement at the college level. They have to have a calculator for their math class. And then that forces faculty to use them in ways that they probably shouldn't be using because, I got to use these calculators. And, I think I don't have a problem with calculators, but they should only be used when they should be used, not forced into the class.
Brian, didn't you tell me the other day that there was a similar uproar about like things like spell check and grammar checks?
Well, I think there have been. Definitely, we've seen spell check being, removed during like a testing period, or students aren't going to learn to spell if that's the case. But I think some of that has subsided quite a bit. The grammar check, I think, is the new one right now. That's the big one where I think spell check has had its time and we've kind of calmed down. But the grammar check is, that's where we're starting to see teachers really kind of like, well, I guess I hear from my children that say they have teachers that expect them to use grammar checks and then others that don't want them to use it.
I have an editor,
and so
what's the difference?
You get mixed messages.
Like Microsoft Editor?
An actual editor.
No, he has a physical editor.
Oh, an actual editor, yeah.
She fixes all of my dumb stuff, right? And that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
like
that
when
we're going to have other things like that too. So I guess I was thinking like my son is working on a rewrite for an English paper, and I threw in the question into ChatGPT, not to do the homework for him, but just to start generating some ideas and starting to get him to think a little bit more about it. And so that was just one of these like I see writers doing that too. Like this is just a way for me to open the dam when I get writer's block, or just to kind of start getting some of those ideas flowing. I mean, we've definitely had tools out there before. We've had, there's been obviously Cliff's Notes. There's been, you can go online and you can find homework helpers. You could, if you can afford one, you get a tutor. And so is this just a new tool that we're now seeing? And I do question that. And what you said too, Rhett, I also think about like when does it become a paid tool, and which it probably will be at some point. And then are we dealing with the have and the have-nots for education, that you should have access to a tool that can help you be your best self, I guess, or best learner. I
mean, it's called OpenAI, so hopefully they'll stay open. Maybe it'll be ad supported. Here's the answer, and also you should try this brand of Kleenex.
Well, it's going to be open. I don't think that's the open in OpenAI, though.
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm hoping it's just going to be baked into our productivity software soon.
And maybe Google will
we're starting to see it.
So.
Yeah, we're starting to see it in other places, like Canva, for instance, has an image generation tool that's based on AI, and it now has a magic write tool that just came out like in the last month or so that does the same thing. And so those are tools that I guess would be right along the productivity work suite that a lot of educators and students might already use.
The image thing I think is a little bit different. My daughter's an artist, and from what I understand,
because it's stealing.
Because it does. It does. What it does is it takes a lot of the images already there and uses other people's images to make images. And I'm okay with the concept of AI generated art as long as everything's based on something else, but it can't just like steal stuff. And I think I'm afraid that that's what it's doing right now. So
yeah, because like part of people's like little scribbles in the corner, like signatures and stuff, were showing up. Yeah. Well, have you had it write a blog post yet?
I did. I didn't use it. I did have it write. I've had to write a couple of. I have a radio show on campus. It's a short thing, and we'll do five days of 3 minutes a day. And I had to make outlines for those, and it actually did a really good job. I changed up the outlines, but it was a great place to it finds a lot of the information that you would have to look up anyway, and it kind of organizes. It did a really great job. I will.
It's an assistant.
Yeah, it's right.
I saw the other day a blog post. It was one of these educator blogs where they just they want you to sign up for their newsletter, and it's kind of like their profession, and they want you to.
Is that the one about using comic strips?
Yes, using comic strips. Yep. And it was at the bottom of the blog post a disclaimer about this just a disclaimer that part of this blog was written with the assistance of ChatGPT. I was like, seriously? Like, I don't think that's necessary.
No. Well, but I mean,
they did explain that they were using it as a way to kind of explore the tool themselves. So in some ways, they were, I guess, virtue signaling about, hey, we're trying this product out as well.
But in terms of spam, internet spam, I see stuff that use snippets of my code or my blog posts all the time. And if you use, they're just trying to generate traffic. They're just trying to make words that generate traffic. And it seems like this ChatGPT would be perfect for that. I could just write 10 blog posts a day that are terrible, but they're not terrible, but they're much more coherent because it's done by a robot. You could use that to generate traffic rather than just stealing other stuff. So it seems like if you just want to generate words, this is great for that.
Don't we already have an issue of like bots generating propaganda like crazy?
That's true. This will be bad too.
Yeah.
The robots are going to rule the world, and we're all going to be doomed.
Just wait until
we're pretty good at recognizing. I mean, no, maybe we're not pretty good at recognizing it. I don't know.
But just wait until the spammers and the phishers start getting their AI specific tools to like be better than what they have right now.
Think about how bad phishing will be. Right now, you get these emails that people reply to. I mean, using AI, they can make much smarter emails because you're not going to actually write those emails. It won't be worth it. The only way spam works is that it costs the same to write 1 million emails as it does write one email, right?
Yeah, but by then Gmail will have a built-in AI to help defend you.
I too was a warrior in the AI wars, much like your father. Yeah, I'll be able to say that to my grandkids, right? Yeah. So exactly. It won't be Clone Wars, it'll be the AI wars.
Well, okay, since we went there, I sent this to Brian as in preparation for this show. is I think it's Rocco's Basilisk. Have you heard of this? Basilisk. Yes, basilisk. It's a thought experiment which basically says that once this artificial superintelligence becomes a thing, it's going to go back and look through history of anybody who's published anything bad about the AI, and then scrub your existence, or seek revenge upon you. So like we should all be saying like, we love you, ChatGPT.
There's already someone like that on Twitter
so
that goes back and looks at what people said about that person on Twitter, and
Oh yeah. Like all of Twitter. Yeah. So like this is the robots coming back to get us if we talk ill about it.
So I just want to be clear then. I've said good things about ChatGPT in this podcast. Is that correct?
We did end
have.
on the
I think you
benefits
have.
of ChatGPT and how we could use it for positive use in the.
I did say
education.
I said it made mistakes, but it's going to get better. So that's just encouraging the robot to become a better robot. That's not bad.
And it is asking for. They say it's asking for help in essence, for feedback. So we are giving feedback, and so I think we have a lot of positive to say. And you spoke, Rhett, about. I want the AI to listen. You spoke about how it's very polite and it says sorry and all those kinds of things. So I think we're good.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
I think
Great.
so. I think we'll
feel
be
better
safe.
now.
Your physics post, MacGyver will not be scrubbed from streaming by the AI someday.
Oh, good. Great.
Well, thank you so much, Rhett. It actually has been a treat to have you and to think about this. This has obviously been a new tool, and it's exploded. If you haven't seen a news story about ChatGPT, you've been, I don't know, you've been
missing it.
It's definitely been something that's been on the horizon. I know it's affected education already. I know it's going to be a looming thing for a lot of people as well, and I'm excited to see where it can take us. It's a fascinating time in history.
I agree.
For sure. Well, thanks so much again, Rhett. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me for the 5th time, ready for the 6th time.
You bet.
Woohoo! Bye now.
Bye now.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for listening to our show. If you'd like to know more about this episode or any of our previous episodes, visit laboutloud.com. Lab Out Loud is produced by me, Dale Basler, and my co-host, Brian Bartell. If you have questions, comments, or suggestions for Lab Out Loud, visit laboutloud.com/contacts. Thanks again.